What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. That's John MIDDLEKAUFF with that bohemian glow to his skin. I'm Guy Haberman. It's great to have you. If you're watching on YouTube, what's up? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell. I think as we're talking, there's actually a video on our channel loading of I just put up like 10 minutes of the Niners quarterbacks at practice today at OTA practice, because they did one of these drills where they bring out these two not medicine balls. What are the big bouncy balls called?
Like the ones you do abs on, or even bigger than that?
Yeah, no, those.
Blow up ab balls?
Yeah, those big ones. And they quarterback drops back and then they roll the balls at him, and they got to, shift in the pocket and then step up and throw. So that was a fun little drill to watch. So that video's up, among other things there. And if you listen to the podcast, great. 5-star review. Hit us with a question on Apple Podcast. Leave us a review. In that review, leave a question. And that's how you get in the Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF mailbag. Or you can email us at promocodeham@gmail.com as well.
Speaking of airing, I think Florio wrote that Inside the NFL, remember that long-standing show? I think it got canceled.
Yeah.
They just didn't have anywhere to be. HBO or it was on Showtime for a while. Then it got on, I forget the last channel it was on, is now on ... the CW. So
I was going to make a joke, but you were serious.
Dead serious. Yeah, CW is getting involved. They have to have some executive that is that's a huge sports fan, right?
Well, they just got bought within the last 6 months, in the last year, by a different. It's a different CW than we know it, and I think the company that bought them might have some background in live sports, or at least definitely has the money to try and boost the CW or change what the perception of the CW is. So there has been a very recent change in.
They on the NCAA tournament, or is that a different channel?
No, that's Turner. That's all True TV, TNT, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Did you see Kevin Clark's article about Liv? Did you read that?
I did
today.
Not.
It was good, but one of the things he wrote was, I think it was him, that he's like, it's been hard to come by ratings numbers for the Liv events, but one leaked out. I guess were they just in Washington D.C.?
Yes,
3,700.
100 people.
33,700. That's not even. That can't even be real. Now that I don't think it's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy. I mean, maybe 370K would be my guess.
Well, it was for sure not 370K. As I said,
it wasn't six figures.
Was it? I just wondered, was it 37,000? But I'm just going to double check it here before I give you bad intel, before I start repeating that all over the place, because the number is too crazy to even believe. But see, I'm looking. It wasn't his article. I read that somewhere else. Then, I think. But oh no, here we go. Yeah, 3,400 in-market viewers for Saturday coverage. 3,400 was the number.
Yeah, it's rough.
Sunday, 5,700.
Yeah, they are. That's why they just gave the PGA Tour billions of dollars. They wanted it on CBS, NBC.
Yeah. All right, Niners last practice for a long time. 1, 2, 3 Cabo.
Those grueling practices they do during the spring. Holy shit!
You could argue the practices themselves are 1, 2, 3 Cabo. They're gonna do a team barbecue on Thursday, but beautiful day out in Santa Clara. No rain today, John. And I got a couple takes for you, but we can just, we can run through, we can run through a bunch of stuff. Jake Moody was good today. Jake Moody hit from 35, 40. Everyone's numbers are a little different, but 35, 40, 57, 63, 48, and 44. Kyle, to me, what was the story on that was not that he kicked and made them, but that Kyle kept running them out there. No Zane Gonzalez. Kyle wanted to see some Jake Moody. But yeah, we can rattle through some things today. I was in the car driving back. I don't know if you've seen any quotes or anything, Steve Wilkes, or you seen any news and notes from people that were also out there.
I was just thinking, and I just Googled what round Shane Leckler was drafted in.
Yeah.
And he was the 5th. So obviously Sebastian was a 1. He was a 5. The 49ers might have the highest drafted punter-kicker combo in the league.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Their punter's a fourth and their kicker's a third.
So they're just 7, and a lot of teams have probably don't have. There got to be somebody out there without a drafted player at either position, right?
Yeah, Justin Tucker, undrafted free agent. I mean, some of the better kickers are 5th, 6th, 7th undrafted free agents, right? So, and definitely punters. Listen, Wisnowski, the eye test, he doesn't necessarily pass all the time, but clearly Penning does a good job. They like the guy. Feels like I'd like a little more for a quote-unquote franchise punter, but it works. And I would say your combination of a 7, 3, and a 4, which I'm unbothered by, is if they are combined starters for your team for 15-plus years. I mean, Wisnowski is going to be the starting punter. Health, right, is on his side for 10 years.
Right.
Moody, at minimum, is getting... Well, you pivot off kickers fast. You start missing kicks, like you just don't survive. So that's you never know.
But if it goes well, it's a decade, right?
Yeah, you get an extension. I was going to be like, do they have the 5th-year option? But he wasn't drafted that early. It's just there's Wisnowski's proven, he's your starting punter. They feel good about him. But it's just once you're in a couple tight games, kicks matter in the end. They matter in the NFL, whether you're a 7-win team or a 13-win team. Just look at the scores for a lot of teams, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You were just in tighter games. And sometimes, in college football is just so different when you just close your eyes and you think about some of the games you're watching, the scores. But in the NFL, the final score, and you and I have talked about this for so many years, can be 17 points. You're like, that fucking thing was close, right? Or it's vice versa. It's the opposite, where it's like you won by 7, but God, it felt like you were in complete control the whole game. It's a unique sport that way, where the points come at a premium, whether you're playing the Eagles or whether you're playing. There's a decent chance the Niners, one of the Cardinals games, is tied going in the fourth quarter, right? If they're a 3-win team.
Well, I'll give you an example. The biggest point differential last year in the NFL was, do you know who had the biggest point differential last year in the league? Positive net, or not positive net points, just net points.
You're just saying just points, not factoring in how many you give up?
No. I'm saying the difference between offensive and defensive points.
I would guess the Eagles. Bills, maybe?
Eagles is a good guess at 133, but that's not number one. The Bills was my guess as well, 169. That's not number one. Sorry?
Bengals?
The Bengals at 96, so they're not number one. You might next guess Kansas City, 127. So we haven't found anyone to top Buffalo's 169 yet. And you want to take another shot?
The San Francisco 49ers?
The San Francisco 49ers had the top differential in the NFL last year, and I could give you the math at 173 divided by 17. That's 10. That means nobody else had an average point differential of 10 points per game. But most of you, we get a lot of non-Niner fans, but most of you watching or listening to this know that the Niners played in a bunch of games where the field goal kicker mattered, right? They played in close games. So
things like the score could be off. Feels like they lost the Denver Broncos 11-10. That's what the score in my mind is, 11-10. And obviously the Bears game to start the season, I think, was like 19-12 or 19-10. So two of their first, how many games they ended up losing? 4? They got 13-3.
13-4. You can't. Yeah, 17 games.
Oh yeah, there's 17 games. 2 of their losses within the first month were a combined like less than 10 points, right? And obviously they had the best defense in the league. Clearly one of, depending on what metric you look at, one of the best defenses throughout the league. And then really got skewed when the old 7th round gunslinger came in, right? Because they start scoring a lot more points in his stretch. Like they made up a lot of ground, I think, the last 5 weeks.
They started scoring touchdowns for sure, right?
Well, yeah. They started averaging, I think we did the math, going into the playoffs, it was like 31 points a game. It was like 34, 35, 33, 28, 41. It was Jimmy was like, they won again, 23-20.
Yeah, starting with the Miami game, that was what was that, plus 16. Then they beat the Bucks 35-7. Then they beat the Seahawks by a touchdown. Then they beat the Commanders by 17. Beat the Raiders by a field goal, but then they blew the Cardinals out by 25. So, yeah, you're right.
That Dolphin game, remember, Trent Sherfield took the opening little slant to the crib.
They were in trouble, and it turned out they weren't in trouble. The Dolphins wouldn't really be in that game. So, I mean, yeah, hitting a 50, hitting a 65-yarder, 63-yarder, whatever it was. There were some varying reports.
Are they rotating, or they just each
today?
take
It
like
was
3 field
all
goals?
him. Today, it was like team, then they'd bring out the goalpost. He kicked like 4. Then team, bring out the goalpost, kick 1. Team, bring out the goalpost, kick 1. So they were trying to I think put him in a little pressurized situations. It wasn't just the kicker drills. These are while everybody was out there, and he was killing the ball. I was not out there Tuesday. There was the report. Apparently one of the makes yesterday was like a low liner that should have been. These were all just pured. So
Death taxes, Jake Moody.
yeah, that's what you hope there, Harbs. Diablo Lenore looks good wearing number 2. I don't know if it's just the number change, but goes a long way. He looked good. Sam Womack made a nice play out there today. We'll get to the quarterbacks, and I want to dive into a couple things, but
I got another young defensive name because I saw him at the podium, and I saw some quotes, I think, from Kyle saying he's night and day. And this was a guy last year whose weight was all over the place. By the end of the season, they scrapped him as Drake Jackson.
Yeah.
You notice?
I can just tell you his body looks very different, and I noticed it last week. Like he just looks. I mean, it's funny for me to say this about a professional athlete. Say like he looked physically a little softer last year, but he just looks. He looks tighter this year. He's bigger. He just looks like he's in better. I think last year at OTAs, even and definitely in the fall, you and I watched him and just went, okay. The fact that his body wore down as the year went on, and he wasn't in good enough condition to finish out the season was not surprising based on just seeing him before the year. And I heard him talk. Maybe it was the podium listening to him talk. Like he was talking about how he's just. I know everybody says this time of year, but he has taken a whole new approach to taking care of his body this year. So,
well, I think the Bills. I mean, Vaughn's back off injury. They signed Leonard Floyd the other day. Like the 49ers struck gold with, a couple of their on the margins. An Arden Key trading for what's his name from the Texans who was good.
Yeah. Menahu.
There's one other guy that I'm forgetting who's pretty productive for them. I mean, over the last couple of years, but they've just had bodies because they have not had really a second, defensive end edge rusher. They've had guys inside. They load up again with Hargrave, and Eric Armstead missed a bunch of time last year. But you do need, to me, if Drake Jackson can
Ebukam,
live up,
who you're thinking of?
Ebukam is who I'm thinking of. That if Drake Jackson can be, I'm not even going to jump to say like a legit starter, but just as one of those rotational guys, kind of a combination maybe of the group of 3 of them, if he can become like 2 of them, because he is. I mean, this guy was a legitimate talent. I mean, it was even at the time was a little shocking that he was there, right when they got him. I remember me and you were talking to John Lynch. I think they were definitely surprised.
Yeah,
had some things going weird, right, with his body type, the schemes,
change positions, unstable situation at SC. Yeah,
and most guys, and we talked about it when we were describing Drake, get caught up in the shuffle. I remember Adam Peters is like, Hufanga through all the shit always rose above it. It's rare in a shitty Power 5 situation. And I would even put USC as a unique Power 5. Like there are probably like 10 schools like them throughout the country, like an LSU, a Texas, an Oklahoma, a Florida, that like when things get weird, they get really weird, right? Because everyone's already talking about you. You're one of the premier programs in the country.
Did you say Florida State?
I would even probably have them on the next tier.
Yeah, you're right. Florida, Texas. You said
like
that.
LSU. I put LSU like the Eddie
LSU.
Ogeron when that got weird. Les Miles.
Yeah.
I'd say Texas, but they haven't had the NFL talent.
Michigan, Nebraska.
Nah, I wouldn't put Nebraska.
Penn State.
They've had the same coach now for a while, though.
They always want to fire him.
True.
And extend him.
$15 million a year.
That's a good list.
I'm really interested from kind of a geeky football. Like, if Drake Jackson is just good, we talked about it last year, clearly wasn't ready. A lot going against him.
Right.
Kyle's high on him yesterday when he talked after practice. Physically, just seeing pictures, he looks good. And just look at the team. Like, they are, I wouldn't say depending on him, but it could be a big swing guy if he's good for them.
Well, 2 things. One, he also, one reason you feel good projecting any D lineman they get is the hit rate they have on maximizing D linemen, right? Like they're just they do it all the time. It's why the pick to at that spot felt really good was because of the work that Chris Kasarik does. But the other thing is, like, it feels like gravy sometimes when you draft in the second round and you take a high upside guy, if he'd already developed, would have been drafted in the top 20 or whatever it is. But you know, if your team's good like the Niners are and your players are expensive, real quickly, it's not gravy. Like, you just need cheap, productive players on your roster. And so it kind of, you go from in year one with Drake Jackson feeling like, hey, it doesn't really matter what he does this year. We're lucky to have gotten a player of this talent. Usually when you draft where we draft, we don't get players like that. And that's all well and good. You don't need them right away because you got all these other guys. But very quickly, you don't have all these other guys because you can only keep one of your two linebackers that were up for a deal. So you pick Greenlaw and you let Alshire go. You can't keep Amenahu and you can't keep Ebukam. And so now you got to go back and go through the cycle. And real quickly, you need them. Like, real quickly, it's a huge hit if you hit on him. And if you don't, you better not have to replace him with a free agent because it's just, you can't pay him, and Hargrave and Armstead and Bosa is about to get paid. Because of Bosa's upcoming contract, Drake Jackson is really critical just to be a rotational plus player for them, you know?
Yeah, to me, if he is not able to, like, take a step, they will have to do one of their margin trades where they try to get some team that's going through some shit where they give up a 4th or 5th round for a guy that's not working out somewhere else, i.e.,
yeah,
you know, I think what they did with Amenahu and the Texans,
one.
You know, Arden Key was a cheap free agent flyer, you know, a hider type. Like, they will sniff around. But they just want this guy to just be good, which is, there are a lot of Drake Jacksons all throughout the league, right? And by the middle of next season, there'll be a handful of them, let's just say 25%, will just be impact players for said team. And a large percentage of them just get washed, right? Just never, might even, you know, play, but don't. The team would gladly upgrade if they could. And just like, this might not be a good pick.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yep. It goes from a gravy pick to just a bad pick real quick because you should be getting starters there. Some quarterback stuff from today. I thought Trey Lance looked really good today. Darnold was fine. I don't know. I don't think Trey was necessarily better than Sam, but when I just watched Trey, because I've seen a lot more Trey than I've seen Sam Darnold, I thought he looked crisp. I don't know that he threw a wobbler today. He missed some throws, him and Darnold, a couple of times in team drill and in 7-on-7, because you have so much time to run around, had the like classic get sacked. Darnold had one of these, get sacked, flush out anyway, throw across your body, almost get somebody killed in a drill that would bring the NFLPA guy off the sideline if there was contact. And Trey had that too, just kind of moving out of the pocket and get rid of the ball and, throwing across your body, kind of nobody. I think reading the chat, some people already saw that he threw a defensive line pick. Kerry Hyder picked him off like right at the line of scrimmage.
Sam or Trey?
Trey Lance. On a ball that as I'm watching, I'm just saying to myself, just throw the ball. And he's looking left. And just, I couldn't tell. I got screened off for a split second because, I'm in the third line of the defense there, John. And if it was tipped, it wasn't tipped up. If it was tipped, it was just tipped right to him. But good pick for Kerry Hyder. Defense went crazy, all that.
But this was not like a dump to a running back.
It was not a dump.
Throw.
But those.
That's an incredible play by the defensive lineman.
Yeah, those picks don't really bother me all that much. But
how many of there are those throughout the NFL throughout the season?
Not many.
5.
Yeah, not many. Somebody had one last year that was bad. Who was it? Do you remember that? Was it Carr?
Wouldn't put it past him. It feels like TJ Lamar, maybe. TJ Watt had one.
Oh, okay.
Could have been Deshaun. I'm pretty sure it was TJ Watt. I
remember. Did he return it for a touchdown? Maybe.
Potentially, yes.
Oh, okay. I One thing I've gotten over.
You notice the new formed release?
Yeah. I think he
It's
looks
noticeable.
tighter. It looks tighter. Yeah, it looks tighter. I thought actually watching it live yesterday or last week that it looked quicker than Darnold's release. But then I saw David Lombardi put it like a side-by-side from behind of the two of them, and maybe it wasn't quicker, but it's tight. I mean, it is. Darnold's release isn't tighter than Trey's, that's for sure.
You know the video that went viral last week? There was one where he overthrew. It looks like a, like me standing there.
Yeah, he's doing that. You mean the one where he's doing like the foot drill?
Or I saw Dan Orlovsky tell McAfee that that's like a Shanahan drill that they believe that because in football, right, your feet are not always going to be set. It may actually make sense. It's like a way to if you went to a golf range and worked on hitting shots behind trees, you're going to end up behind trees. You're going to end up in a weird spot.
Right.
That it's a drill that, I mean, a lot of times, right, when you're at practice and they go to that drill, people don't walk over to the quarterbacks. You just can kind of see them, if you're at 49er practice, overdoing their own thing, but other cooler shit's going on. And then you watch, you're like, God, this, I totally understand it. I actually don't think it's that crazy. It's just, you're going to have, what's your completion percentage when fucking people are falling all over you? It's not, if you're a 62% passer, if you're hitting that 35% of the time, as long as you don't get it picked. When he airmailed them, and that to me is where you get picked by the safety.
Right.
But how many times has Jimmy skipped that ball? 90% of the time?
Totally.
Now, is Jimmy the bar? Obviously, they want to upgrade. And that's where I would say that why Mahomes and Josh Allen are viewed as two of the great talents ever, because feels like they hit that pass with their eyes closed easily in stride. Especially Josh. It's a strong arm. In theory, Trey should be more powerful in that position because he's just stronger, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look, I just pulled up PFF. Let's see, 50 clean dropbacks. Highest completion percentage under pressure last year was Geno at 56.7%. Okay, in the NFL, only 8 full-time starters were 50% or better under pressure. Mahomes was 48% completion percentage under pressure. Burrow was 53.8. And I'm not even going deeper into how far they're throwing the football, but you're just, yeah. I mean,
who's the worst?
Well, I've got this filtered to 50% of minimum number of dropbacks, so it's only 19 quarterbacks. Goff was 41.9.
Which makes sense, right? Not a great athlete, not a great arm.
Makes sense, but second to worst was Fields. Great athlete, great arm.
Not an accurate player, though.
Mac Jones.
Where was Cousins on the list? Because he's not a great.
Fifth.
His arm's gotten better.
53%.
Fifth highest?
Yeah.
So he's gotten a lot better with the blitz.
So this brings me to why part of the reason I say if Darnold's going to do it, I'm not seeing it right now. And when I say do it, I mean be clearly better than Trey Lance or be without question the Niners' number 2 quarterback. Now, if you told me they viewed them equally, but they could trade Trey for a third, okay, fine. I get it. All ties in that situation. And maybe they like him more. And maybe he's smarter in the meeting room. I don't know. But here's the thing with Darnold. I don't know that he really sees it any better than Trey sees it. Sam, and I thought this today, watching 7-on-7, he could really hold on to the ball. But it's 7-on-7. Who cares? But let's go to the numbers. The 7th slowest quarterback to throw last year in the NFL was Sam Darnold. I don't have this minimized for minimum dropbacks. This is everybody. Malik Willis, time to throw, 3.5 seconds. Bryce Perkins, 3.4. Justin Fields, 3.45. Deshaun Watson, 3.31. Tyrod Taylor, 3.29. Sam Darnold, 3.16. Trey Lance, 3.15. Those were the slowest to throw quarterbacks last year in the NFL. To me, if Sam Darnold is going to sweep Kyle Shanahan off his feet, doesn't he have to get rid of the ball and make quick decisions? The runaround, let's make a play. I don't I just don't think that's the recipe to beat out Trey Lance if you're Sam Darnold. But it might just be the type of player he is, which might also mean that he's what? Well, those types of players generally are quote unquote gamers. So maybe these guys have to play games for us to really be able to see the differences. I'm not saying Sam can't beat out Trey. I'm not saying that. But I am saying I have yet to see the guy that is definitely better for the 49ers than Trey Lance. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing in practice a guy who's been on the team now for a month, making $3 million. So I think and listen, I've been part of the hype train, but I think the expectation of coming in like the way maybe people think I've talked about him or whoever have talked about him. Mayoko says a great story. Like you're going to walk in and see Peyton Manning dominating the practice field. Like he is new to the squad. And ultimately, like as we saw, like what is practice? Like I honestly am kind of a big believer in like I don't even know what practice means in the NFL. Now, with quarterbacks, you definitely could see like the ball, how you spin it and stuff, but wouldn't you say there's a pretty dramatic difference of just what they're doing now and what they'll be doing like when the pads come on, like the first week of practice, like real practice,
for sure,
playing defenses. Like, so I'm not defending anybody here. I just think it can be difficult to make conclusions negatively, positive that Trey, I would say this about Trey, and here's where he deserves credit, is a throwing motion. Anytime you make something that's a muscle memory driven thing and you can change it and stick with it, and I get he's still in shorts and t-shirts, it's not, but clearly like that's pretty impressive. Remember how Tim Tebow tried to do it and he just couldn't do it and he just resorted back? Now he had the worst ever, but I think a lot of guys with shorter releases, it's not like the majority of them are like, let's just keep it long. Like everyone tries to, ideally everyone would be like Dan Marino or Jimmy Garoppolo, like the quick flip, right? But you can't do it. Like if everyone's golf swing could be Rory McIlroy, we'd all do it. If everyone's, how many hitters can't hit a certain pitch and part of it's like a swing, like the plane of their swing. It's just, It gets back to probably when they were in high school, right? It's just how you do it. So I give him a ton of credit. The dude he worked with Mahomes, working that out and clearly sticking. Because I would have guessed like, okay, can he just do this week in, week out? And clearly has, right? That's a huge win.
I think so.
For his own self as his career, like it's a big positive.
But don't you think we still have to see it in games or see it like with live bullets to really
100%. I'm just saying it's like pretty impressive because your natural reaction, just the live bullet, just when you're going back and it's still somewhat football-y, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get hit or whatever.
Yeah.
But even in training camp. But yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he is. I would say Trey Lance is going to be one of the most scrutinized players in August in football. In his live game reps against other teams that every human in America can watch on television.
Yep.
And because he already has bad. Yeah, he already has been. But those clips, good and bad, are going to go for the internet people, very, very viral. Right?
We're all internet people, I think, at this point.
But you know what I mean? Like if he has something sweet, it'll go very viral, and if he has something bad, it's going to dictate all of our takes on him that we've already, I would say people think I'm pretty fluid on him, though I'm not bullish on him, but like if he starts dominating the preseason, I'm not going to be like, oh, fuck, just go with Sam Darnold anyway. I don't care that much. Like play whoever's the better player.
I know, and you've been consistent with that the whole time. I have too. I sometimes it gets misconstrued or misunderstood, I think, but here's a good counter that I want to counter. Third string all pro says, well, the other way to look at it is that Trey isn't getting any separation on Darnold. And, based on what you just said, John, he's been here 2 months. Trey's been here 2 years. Trey should be significantly ahead of Darnold. What I would say to that, though, is so much of the Darnold story is that he's only 25 years old and has all of this untapped potential that is yet to be realized. And I'm saying maybe there isn't that much untapped potential. Maybe there is more questions with Trey than there are with Sam, and that is also potential, right? Like, ideally, there would be all these questions with Darnold because you see all this upside. I don't, forget about knowing the offense, from a physicality standpoint, again, this is, you can't get hit. So we got to see these in games, but I don't see a Sam Darnold that's much more accurate than Trey Lance or throws a much better ball than Trey Lance, or makes throws that Trey Lance can't make, or throws the ball deeper, better.
My question is one major question surrounding Trey's short career has been the touch is just not something that he feels great about, right?
Yeah.
Like a wheel route, or like the Purdy had pretty naturally immediately, right? Which obviously to be a productive player with his stature was going to be a positive. Like if he didn't have it, you have no chance, right? Jake Haener, like he can just throw a wheel route pretty easily. And when you watch the two of them, do you feel like there's any difference in the two, like just throwing a wheel route to Isaiah, I almost said Isaiah Mitchell, but
Isaiah Burst.
Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did McCaffrey practice a lot today?
Did McCaffrey practice? Of course he practiced. Are you kidding me?
Dude treats fucking practices like the Super Bowl.
Him and Ayuk, man.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That's real.
But I also
Kyle
think
Shanahan might value that, right? Historically, that's the criticism. Kyle would rather a guy that can just do the check down that he told him to over go create a play.
In this setting, right? In an NFL, in college it's probably a little different, but in the NFL, I would say the two positions that can really just kind of separate themselves, just eye test wise, would obviously be a wide receiver, right? Run around, you just really feel his speed moving around. It's like you go to one of these practices throughout the country. If you got an Ayuk, if you got a Devontae Adams, I see Elijah Moore, that one of the part of the trade I think for
the Bears.
The Jets got rid of him, right, to take in Lazard or whatever. Jets drafted him a couple years ago. Now he's now on the Browns. I guess he's been killing it at these OTAs. Like you can really dominate if you're a good route runner in OTA. I mean, you can dominate in football, but I just saying OTAs really stand out. I'd even say a DB, like moving around, you can really kind of feel them. Lenore,
Lenore looks good.
So I would put quarterback. I'm not putting them with like D-line or O-line where there's really not much you can take. But it's hard because, like you said, like was a sack? Is this a real play? Because sometimes you throw a pick, let's say,
right,
when the play would have died 2.5 seconds ago, but you scramble around. And I wonder the coaching points in the meeting is like, hey, we want to get the live reps, keep the DBs and the wide receivers are going to keep playing.
Right.
If they tap you, you're allowed to keep it going, right? Because they don't just blow the whistle and stop the play.
Right.
There'd be no point for the – like it's really – these drills are very, very suited for the passing game, I would say, with the – in terms of the wide receivers and the DBs, less around the quarterback because it's not real, unless it's like 2 or 3 steps getting rid of the ball. But what's that? Half the time? I'm not defending or crushing anyone on this. I'm just kind of talking through it.
No, and I think the other thing worth talking through, and I didn't think of it until I saw it today, was like when we see some of these numbers, completion percentage numbers from practice, like Trey Lance threw a ball today that was an incomplete pass that I thought was a really good ball. He threw a ball kind of moving to his left. He threw it to his left just outside the hashes or like at the hashes. And it was one of those throws that he kind of, he layers it over the tight end, over the linebacker, but it's on a line. It's not a floater. He was trying to get to McCaffrey in traffic, and the pass got broken up. But first of all, it was a good throw to get that throw to McCaffrey. Now, it wasn't Fred Warner out there, but it was a good throw just to get it over. I don't know, whoever it was.
What's the best job in the NFL? Once you become a max player for Kyle at any position, and your name's not Christian McCaffrey, you're allowed to do whatever you want, basically, for 6 months a year.
It is. It's a good deal. But it was a good throw to get it over the linebacker, and then it was just a 50-50 ball for McCaffrey, basically. Like right there, DB made a good play. Probably a pass interference. McCaffrey thought it was. I turned to Barrows and I was like, was that pass interference? I think it was pass interference. Just to confirm it. I didn't want to say it here on this platform, John, without having some. He said, yeah, I think it was a pass. So it was a good throw. It was probably a pass interference. And it was McCaffrey in traffic. I'll tell you one guy.
If you ran Madden and you just went to practice, what would you give McCaffrey's like overall rating?
Just based on practice, you're saying?
If like Mahomes is 100, yeah. I'm just saying, just watching him live, like you already know how good he is. Then you see him at practice. Like what does he feel like properly should be his rating? Is he like 96 or is he like 92?
No, 96. Yeah, I was gonna say 98. I mean, he looks like the total package when you watch him move. He does everything. Yeah, he also practices harder than anybody else. So, he moves at his speed is like really pops on a practice field because he's just a muscle. He's just a fucking rocket muscle.
Yeah, anyone not named like Fred Warner has no chance to defend him, like in space.
He just looks different than most people,
Yeah.
Part of it's his body type, at his height, that strong and that fast. But
it's weird for a guy that's jacked up. He is pretty fluid.
Yeah, it's just I did not. It's crazy to say this. I don't think I appreciated Christian McCaffrey enough.
Well, he had disappeared for a couple years after his pretty. I don't know if it was. Yeah, I think it was near historic because he was one of the first 1,000 guys, right?
Yeah, it was historic. Yeah. So Trey made. What I was going to say though is like your point about receivers can really stand out. It's hard with Darnold because I never saw Sam practice before to know if maybe this is how he's always looks. Maybe he looked this way at SC. If I didn't know anything about the Niners and I came out to a Niners practice, I'd be like, God, I would not trust Juwan Jennings on 3rd and 7 because he's going to drop it. But I've been to Niners practice for 3 straight years. I know that's what happens in Niners practice. In fact, he had a drop today, and then Darnold went back to him on the next play. He made a sweet catch over the middle. Jennings is a guy, if you only went to practice, you would correctly identify as a useful player because the radius is so big. That's one thing that stands out in a practice is the
sneaky
radius.
Small receiving room, right? He's way bigger than everybody else.
That's true. That is very true. He does look bigger than everybody else, including some of the tight ends.
Had some Nelson Aguilar moments in practice over his career, but comes through when it matters.
It's practice. We're talking about practice. Darnold made a nice throw to Ayuk in the scramble 11-on-11. Nice throw to Jennings. Sideline to Danny Gray.
He jump out at all?
No. No, I saw Grant said that yesterday he jumped out, and I know he caught a deep ball everyone reported that he caught a deep ball from Trey on Tuesday. The thing with Danny Gray is he just doesn't have enough targets to really get a sense for what he is. Now, you and I think we have a good impression of him because he plays special teams, not as a returner. And so, we've agreed, I think, tell me if you want to add to it, but that there was a certain level of, reliability and competitiveness that you get out of Danny Gray. The thing I wrote down today was there was a 50-50 ball over the middle that he was well covered. Brandon Allen threw it, so who knows? His arm's not great.
Haberman thought he was Josh Allen Jr.
Well, he's a legitimate backup that Danny Gray didn't catch. And the note I made was, I don't know yet if Danny Gray catches 50-50 balls. It doesn't feel like it to me right now that Danny Gray catches 50-50 balls. Like Brandon Ayuk, I know catches 50-50 balls. Deebo Samuel catches 50-50 balls. But they're also two of the best receivers in the NFL. So Juwan catches 50-50 balls.
Kittle, yeah. I mean,
these guys.
How you just said, hey, he doesn't get targets. How does he get targets?
100%. No,
because Ayuk is always going to be within 15, 20 yards of the line of scrimmage, open run routes. Jennings, enormous body type. If Deebo's on the field, he's easy to get the ball to. One thing Danny Gray is going to have to do is they're going to call some deep shots for him, and he gets a shot. He better fucking come down with the ball.
Well, exactly. And I don't if he's open by 5 yards, or
better hit him.
Niners haven't had a deep throwing quarterback accurate in a long time. So are you going to hit him?
Yeah. Drunken Miller ain't walking through that door.
When he comes onto the field, everyone goes, "Oh, Danny Gray's on the field." Right? He does not. What percentage of snaps does he play on offense? Not a ton. So you got a good idea what's happening when he comes out there. So I don't know. That's a big question. That's my question with him. And we just.
But he ain't good enough and he is not even close to even entering the thought of maybe this could be our next Ayuk, right? If we can't pay him both.
And you're not. The other thing is he's not going to dominate a practice in a way that you go, well, we got to get him on. Let's get him some more reps because Ray's got to make more plays than him. Ray can make some plays effectively. To me, effectively faster, just because he's open over the middle, snatches it, and takes off running.
You come around on Ray?
I have come around on Ray. Yeah, Ray.
For some reason, Ray throughout the season just felt like your classic, oh, this guy just signed a 1-year contract guy. And then I was pleasantly surprised, no, actually, multi-year contract, he's still on the squad. Because the Niners, right? If he was just a 1-year contract, he'd be one of those like he might be able to get like $500K more than you have in your budget. But they would definitely have wanted him back by the end of the season on the team again, right?
Yep,
like he was
totally.
that
and
level.
Probably wouldn't have been able to afford him.
Yeah, it feels like he would have got, even if it wasn't dramatic, like $1 million more than the Niners budget. Because the Niners just are on a budget, right?
Yeah, and they would have been like, well, I guess we'll try Danny. I mean, yeah, we'll give Danny a shot there or whatever, or Willie Snead. We'll get
this is what I think makes the Niners, this is just why they're in the crew of the top 3 or 4 teams. We're talking about all these guys. These guys are on the outside, right? They are driven by 10 to 12 core star players that if 8 of them are rolling, their impacts are so high that when you get, Danny Gray's playing well, Womack had a pick, this rookie made a play, that you win by 20 points.
Yeah.
Right? Because every single week I know, well, McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Trent, Fred, and Ward are all playing in this game. Hargrave's healthy. Bosa's kind of got a rolled ankle, so he's a little down. Well, it doesn't matter, right? If I get Drake Jackson had a set, it's like, Drake Jackson had some pressure this game. Fuck, it's on. That's
and
where
Bosa will play anyway.
This is where, to me, like what separates why they're in the upper echelon. It really separates the top teams. Like the Houston Texans or a lot of the Raiders are very dependent on these type guys to be like 3 or 4 of them got to become like high-end starters.
Yeah.
And the Niners are just not. If Danny Gray gives them good special teams reps and 2 touchdowns, one of those touchdowns probably be like in a route, right? Like that was the nail in the coffin to the Seattle.
Yeah.
But this is like, and this is a huge part to me of the offseason, like for them, is like the growth of all the guys we're kind of talking about. Because, Bosa, Trent, these guys are Hargrave, this guy's plug and play. Like, they're just sustaining and maintaining and being ready to roll. It is a big, big time for, can Danny take a step? Because, like, if you can't, you're not going to be able to field.
Well, but at some point we're making, is Ayuk and Debo Samuel on this team together next year or in 2 years? Ayuk has a chance to.
Ayuk's a season away from being a very, very expensive player.
Like extraordinarily expensive, right? Like
22
million
minimum. Okay. Yeah.
So, I was talking to our buddy Jeff Schwartz today on my drive because I just called him like, "It's Sam Darnold. Am I missing like?" We started talking, and he's like, "I don't think I've ever seen a team like the 49ers. A team like this has never existed. A Super Bowl contender that just has." He goes, they might have the best left tackle, the best tight end, the best fullback, one of the best receivers, the best pass rusher, the best linebacker. He's like, but they can't figure out a quarterback. He's like, no team like this has ever existed. It's crazy. I was like, well, and Kyle, like, say what you want about Kyle. He's one of the best coaches in the league, right? Like, we could debate it, but you would take him in the top 10.
Well, they're kind of built like the 85 Bears, but their head coach is not some like, Ditka was their coach, but really, he was wired like an old school guy. It'd be like if the 85 Bears had like a Walsh or Sean Payton, right? Because they play like old school football, but they're led by an offensive guy who's also the play caller. It's just it's an all-time outlier situation because it's impossible to consistently contend where it's like, what's your quarterback situation? Yeah, we think Mr. Irrelevant is going to be healthy, but if he's not, we had this number 3 overall pick. He's got 4 career starts. No one knows if he's accurate or not. We also got this former 3rd overall pick, major bust, but he's young. If I told you right now the Bills or the Chiefs, like, something's up with Josh Allen's elbow. Like, this is not good. Or Mahomes, like, degenerate knee. We don't know if he's going to be healthy. You're like, they are fucked.
They're done.
They're done. If I told you, this year, like, Dak, something's up. No one knows. Look at last year with Stafford. It was just something's off. They would have had some troubles no matter what. They would not. If Stafford just fully healthy, they are not, a 5-win team. They win 6 or 7.
Right.
But it's just derailed. The Niners I don't know who the quarterback is. It doesn't feel like it matters that much. Unless the quarterback is a disaster. Right?
Yes.
And we've seen that before. With I would say, when Jimmy got hurt the first time around with the Mullins situation and C.J. Beathard. And it's like, that was a bar, like, you can't be at that bar, or I don't care. This team, like, last year was playing at a higher level, so maybe they could have been competitive, but eventually, like, your defense gives out. You know, it's like, I can't.
You can't even make the basic. Like, the one thing with Jimmy, and I was having this conversation with Schwartz today about, he's like, well, Mac Jones is better. We were just going back and forth. I'm like, well, I mean, maybe Mac's going to have, Mac gets an offensive coordinator, like a real one this year, Bill O'Brien. But I don't think Mac has shown that his ceiling is higher than Jimmy Garoppolo's ceiling. Like, Jimmy, multiple times, for all, we talk about a lot of Jimmy's missed throws, but Jimmy had some really good games and made some great throws in his career, like some critical crunch time throws. He did it a lot. So it's why Jimmy was just one of the great play. We were lucky to live the Jimmy Garoppolo era, because it was just, you can't put it in a box. As bad as it was at times that good. I mean, it was just it was just a wild thing to witness. And Mac, to me, has not shown consistently he's got that ceiling. I think the Niners, to your point, like, I do think if they had to play, if Trey Lance was their quarterback for 17 games, you are not, it's a much better situation than like all the stuff you just referenced, the Mullins, the whatever, because their talent's good. I think you'd have to run them and keep them healthy. I think Trey could keep you afloat through that. I don't know that Sam could. Maybe he could. We think Brock could, but I think it's fair to be a little fearful of some level of regression for a guy that had 13 touchdowns and 4 picks last year. So it may look like that no matter who their quarterback is, again, which is fun. That's what they're built for. The question is, can they ever take the jump where they don't have to be like that forever? And, can you win a Super Bowl like that? But Walter Payton, 1,500 rushing yards at 85 and 49 catches. 49 catches, 1,500 rushing yards. Jim McMahon, 1985 quarterback, and was a different world, John. 15 touchdowns, 11 picks, 56.9% completion percentage.
Different times, man. Different times. I think, do you know what's crazy is Walter Payton's career was like toward the end. Like I just typed in his wiki. Last year in the league was 87. Like the peak of his powers was like late 70s, winning MVPs.
God, he played a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, he started Jackson State 1971. Can you imagine the pounding in the NFL? Like a 75 to 87-year career as a starting running back and one of the best players in the league, like the pounding you take.
How about this? He won the MVP at 24. He finished second for the MVP in 85 and sixth for the MVP in 86. 10 years later. How many running backs have done that? Like been top 5 MVPs 10 years apart, basically.
It can't be many. Just to me, the load.
I got to tell you, this Peyton guy, I'm no historian, John, but I think he was a good player.
Just a lot of 330, 340, 360, 340, 314, 380. I mean, they ran this fucking guy into the ground. And there can't be many. No wonder a lot of people think he's one of the truly great any position players, like top 10 of all time. It's like he truly. How many running backs were catching 50? How many wide receivers in like 1980 were catching 45 balls?
Eric Dickerson, right? He was a kind of a pass catcher.
But I'm saying wide receiver. Like, what was a wide receiver going nuts? 68, 75? They weren't catching 110.
Should I use Jerry Rice as the example or no?
Yeah, but I'm talking 1980. So 4 or 5 years before Rice even shows up. This would have been like Lynn Swann, guys like that. It wasn't a passing league.
Yeah. Can I give you some Jerry Rice touchdown totals?
Well, I mean, it's
15, 22, 9, 17, 13, 14, 10, 15, 13, 15.
He was pretty good.
Yeah. If you're Joe Morris, Giants running back, 1986, you can always have this. That year you finished ahead of Elway, Montana, Peyton, and Rice in the MVP voting. Don't know a lot about Joe Morris, but he finished 4th in the MVP voting that year.
Well, here's after the first 2 guys I just typed in receiving leaders, 1980. Once you get past 4, Charlie Joyner, 71
Chargers?
Chargers, yeah. James Lofton, 71 catches.
Raiders?
I think, Raiders. Kellen Winslow,
Chargers?
89.
Or Browns?
Chargers had a fucking passing game.
Dan Fouts.
Yeah, 89, 71. They were slinging that thing around. So it just shows you. I mean, Walter Payton, I guess he would have been down the list a little bit, but
Who was number one? Did you get the number one?
Winslow,
Oh, okay.
89, 1299. See, I understand Kellen Winslow's like, do you understand in 1980 when they literally could fucking take a bat to your knee over the middle? I was 90, 1,300, and 10 touchdowns. Can you imagine?
Wearing a fucking pasta grater or whatever for a helmet.
You saw what my sperm produced. Crazy guy, but a top 10 pick, you know. But I'm just saying my genetics.
Right.
If you gave me what all these guys have and put me in the league in 2021, what do you think I would do? And I'd be like, yeah, I will not argue. Like,
well, yeah, the part that would really be killer is like if those guys showed up with the 85 mentality. Like you don't just take their talent and just because if they came up in today's NFL and college and that system, they would be like these guys. But if you took one of those guys who practiced like that and who did cocaine at those levels and steroids, I mean it'd be like that video game NFL Blitz where they played in the streets. Did you see that there's a guy who has a college football players union? I don't know what the members are, but he's trying to.
Kellen Winslow before Jerry Rice showed up was leading the league in catches every single year.
He was a true receiver, not a tight end.
I thought he was more of a tight end, but I have to break down. Like, was he lining up in the slot? Did he have his hand in the dirt?
Kellen Winslow 1. I don't want Kellen Winslow 2. I want Kellen Winslow 1.
I assume tight end.
How do I get Kellen Winslow 1?
Sneaky, pretty productive early Montana years was Dwight.
Who?
Dwight
Clark. I have to type in Kellen Winslow 1. I do.
Just slow and steady.
He was.
I think he's considered a tight end.
Yeah, 6'5", 250. Speaking, one note I didn't give you today, as everyone was waiting. The way it works is you wait, and then they take you to the fence line, the media, then they walk you up to the practice field, and the players usually are already out there. Debo was not already out there. Everyone's back was turned. I think I was the only one that saw. I look, speeding through the parking lot in uniform, wearing his cleats on an electric scooter. Here comes Debo. A little like you remember those things, the Lime scooters. Those things used to be everywhere. Debo came up in I don't know if they have some team electric scooters to get around because it's a long walk. In his cleats, that's the part that kind of spooked me. Gets up to the other, like the player's gate, and tosses the bike and comes in. But it's good to see him feeling good.
He's on his own plan.
He had a nice little. I'm watching 11 on 11. Same deal. I look up. I'm like, oh, there's Debo on the other field by himself, catching passes from somebody. A nice little one-handed deep ball catch. You watch his press conference from Tuesday?
I saw the main quote, which was "I came in fat," and alluded to the contract, threw him off. I think that's a little convenient. I think it's safe to say what are you doing on the contract? Someone else would negotiate. It's not like you're on the phone the whole time. Like you just didn't work out that much over the summer.
Just in case you're not going to hold out the whole season, in case you're going to hold out the whole year.
And he obviously didn't do anything leading up to this time. This exact time last year, he was doing nothing, clearly, right? Showed up. Remember, he was on the side.
Right.
If I remember, did he show up was training camp? Was he signed by training camp? Or were there a couple days where he wasn't signed?
I thought there were a couple days where he was not signed, but he was there.
I think that was the case. So I wouldn't say I give him a pass because that'd be 2 out of the last 3 years he showed up fat. And you mentioned this before we hopped on. His body type is he's an outlier player. He's an outlier player for the way the 49ers have built this thing. When you think about the type guys they have like the exact type guy you're looking for. Like if they would let Nick Bosa practice, he would. But they just can't. Like he's been injured before. He's in pristine shape. Christian McCaffrey ready to roll. George, no one's ever been like, oh, George's out of shape, right? Ayuk practices his ass off. Hufanga comes in, immediately meshes, and like, God, he's just one of their guys. Ward, the only reason you worry is like his hammy last year, remember, was like he's a good practice player. Like all their guys are pretty locked in.
Hard.
I'm not a huge McGlinchey guy, but you never had to worry about him anything. except when the game started and you're right side of your offensive line, you had to help protect over there. Debo's is not a big-time practice player. He's just not. And he's not really a great route runner. If I just describe that to you, you'd be like, wait, this is one of the best players in the league? Like, well, yeah, he can be. But when you compare him to his peers, like the other guys, like his other 2 guys that were in his draft class and both got signed, they play the position like the position's quote-unquote supposed to be played. Like they're outside wide receivers. And if I told you next year A.J. Brown has 15 touchdowns and DK Metcalf has 13, like it's very believable just on the outside, right? If I tell you Debo has 13 touchdowns, well, how many of those were handed off behind the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, it's an incredible number if he had 13 touchdowns.
Okay, let's just say 9.
Yeah. 3?
Not all of them would be catching.
Right.
It's just, and I would say, are 3 of those a pass behind the line of scrimmage? Because even the year that he went nuts to carry the 49ers to the playoffs, I remember vividly 2 quick screens he takes to the house. It might have been, if you factor in the playoffs too, like several. So he's just an outlier body. He's an outlier player, but he is proven, like I'm a big believer, like what do you do on Sundays? It's not like he's some malcontent, it's not like he's just a big pain in your ass. But I just don't know if the Niners will ever quite have like him again. He's just not who they look for typically. He's really not like anyone of all the good teams. Like he's just not like anybody else. Because even Tyreek, I think people would say, well, he kind of got big-headed when the Chiefs got rid of him. Then you look, he had 119 catches last year and 1,700 yards. Like he's a dominant receiver.
And makes hard catches over the middle. Tua hangs him out to dry. He goes and gets the ball.
He's fucking incredible. Like I don't even see how you'd argue, like, listen, if Randy Moss is the fastest, sweet outside wide receiver ever, T.O.'s the most physical, Jerry's the overall best, would Tyreek be the most, like, I just don't know if we're going to quite see anything quite like that again. Because he's like Debo, but he can run like Randy Moss, but he can, like, play over the middle. He can catch the deep balls. He's unguardable.
He's a complete receiver.
Yeah, Debo's not.
I thought it was a little, not weird, because it made sense, because he wasn't there the first day last week, and he was just always and then he showed up. So he was always just kind of a day behind. So what everybody else was doing, he was always going to kind of be a day behind it. But I thought it was interesting. I made note of the fact that today, Wednesday, the day after he did the press conference and said, like, I was not in good shape last year. I did not have a good off season. I did not have a good season. He's on the side working out, doing something else while Ayuk and McCaffrey are practicing. Now, Fred Warner's not out there during team drills. Kittle caught a bunch of balls, but during team drills, he's basically not involved at 11 on 11. But I wonder if it bothers them a little that this is the year where he's like all in, and they talk about it, and he's going to show up and practice, but he's not going to show up at the same exact time everybody else starts practicing on the field, and that he's not doing the things all the time that the other guys are doing because he's off on the side for whatever reason, conditioning, injury prevention. If it's injury prevention, I'm all for that.
He did not have to be there last week.
Did not.
Because if I was him,
neither did Brandon Ayuk or Christian McCaffrey.
I know, but he'd go, well, he views himself like as Bosa and Trent, and those guys aren't there last week.
Well, but who's, Brandon Ayuk is the leader of the wide receivers. He took that mantle while Debo was gone.
Yeah, I mean, no one's calling me team captain. I'm just a $60 million player.
Well, that's the other thing. He's not even a team captain.
Well, no, but he's not a team captain, right?
But I'm paying him $20 million.
But they are. It would be a problem if this was the Houston Texans or even the Jags or a team that, like, they just don't need that out of him. Like, Hufunga's a better leader.
Yeah, but what if Brandon Ayuk is going to command $25 million and is just on another team?
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it next year. We'll see how this season goes. Here's where I give him credit's the wrong word, but I do appreciate when someone can just – you might argue, well, that's an easy thing to say, right? It's easy to say that June 6th, right? I was fat last year. Because you're not saying it in the moment. You're not saying, yeah, I'm out of shape. I've let the team down. You're saying it's 6 months removed. So it's kind of easy. It's not like, did you see last week that went viral when Billy Horschel, the defending champ, shot 84 and was like crying? It was like, this, I don't know where the ball's going. It sucks. People are like, God, I can't even believe Billy talked, let alone just like He's like, I'm aiming left. The ball's not coming back right. And he's like in tears. He's like, I'm the defending champion.
You should watch the video I watched from Butch Harmon yesterday about what to do if you get the shanks.
So people were just really impressed. It's like, well, that in the moment, it's going on.
Yeah.
Just like anytime a guy goes, it's always easy to be like, I was wrong. It was on. It's always easy to say, it's on me. What do you mean it's on me? Right. And so, I don't give him that much credit for, because no one cares, right? It doesn't, it's kind of irrelevant. He could have been, it just doesn't matter. I do think like coming in 2 months is where he's going to be judged. Like, is he ready to roll? Because that's,
if he's not, then everything he said yesterday is, hollow.
Exactly. I do think there's a lot of pressure on him to come into the season like ready. Like if you tell me, Trent needs a couple weeks, he's 35 years old, right? Debo's 20 in the prime of his life. Because Bosa's on his own plan, but he backs it up.
Yeah, he's earned that.
The Niners do have guys on their own plans. So, this is pro sports.
They do.
It's why this is you cross a line fast as like Saban wouldn't allow. Well, this isn't college, right? But it also gets back to, I would say 99% of their guys are just ready to roll guys. You don't have, like, am I worried, like, what's Fred Warner doing this summer? I don't know, getting ready for the season? Like, what's Debo doing this summer? Well, historically, you didn't know. This year, he kept posting that he's working out with all the
Kyle,
top
have you
guys.
seen my videos?
I also just don't, like, McCaffrey is ideally what you want, right? Hardest practicer, elite player, total package. Like, you'd have to drag out. I'd say Kittle for the majority. I think they are very hesitant. He's just, they limited his reps, right? George has no problem practicing. To me, Debo, like, he's proven, now it's 2 years removed. Like, you don't get as much credit. Like, okay, what are you doing? It is a what are you doing for me lately? But back to Ayuk, for example. Like, you go to a Niner practice the last 2 years. You saw today, I'm sure it's fucking, he looks unreal. You're like, there can't be that many guys practicing.
Practice is hard.
He's got more to prove than Debo.
He does. Well, but the question is, like, he flipped that switch before it was contract year, right? Ayuk flipped that switch a couple of years ago. It wasn't contract. Now it's contract year. But
I'm not saying he's just doing it for the money, but I'm just saying, like, he's
got a lot to gain.
He's been in
right
prove
now.
it mode.
But I am confident that whoever pays Brandon Ayuk is going to get the same guy after he has taken that money, right? Whereas, like, Debo says what he said Tuesday, but you don't. And I'm being extreme when I say this, but, like, you don't give back $5 million. Like, you know what? I didn't earn the $22 million last year. I'm going to give back $5 million, which is fine. You shouldn't do that. That's not how contracts work in this case. But it just, I'm with you. It doesn't mean anything until we see it. With Ayuk, the Niners have no doubt if they gave him the money, he would be right there again the next day as soon as the whole thing started.
What was the argument like, wait, you really traded DeForest Buckner? This guy's fucking all in 24/7, 365. Like, you got a big picture at the end of this season. Debo has like a season like last year where it's like, he's a really good player. You want him, but at this number, comments like that in his history don't really make him. He's obviously tradable because he's a good player, but he's not. He's had question marks with his work ethic and his own conditioning multiple times. He's got an injury history. But this gets back to what I said. I just don't think there's another Debo Samuel.
And he's still a winning player.
Yeah. And he's a physical tone setter on Sunday. Which in the history of this sport, I would say more than others, because you practice so much more than you play, there have been a lot of, he's not a great practice player, but he's just like a winning ass kicker that I'd say football more than like if you're just kind of a slappy basketball guy and not a winning player, it's like we've seen a lot of those guys get overpaid. They stay losing. That's what makes Debo kind of unique in the sense of you can describe a losing football player and then Sunday happens. Yeah, he's been out of shape. He's been injured a lot. It's like contracts mess with him. It's like, what does he look like? He's just ran over 3 linebackers in the first quarter for a touchdown.
Yeah, beat Jalen Ramsey for a touchdown in the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, took a slant where he broke a tackle of a linebacker, juked out the safety, and outran the corner. And the one thing I'd say to Debo, like, your type body, it does not last forever. You're probably in the, I would say if he's got 4 more years at a high level would feel like a long time.
That would feel – that's another contract.
Yeah. That number next year, I mean, it's going to be the elephant in the room if both those guys are producing at a high level, if the team's having a bunch of success, just like big picture, right? You can't. I don't think you can build your team the way they're built with multiple $20 million wide receivers. It's honestly why they can say whatever they want, but they had to be entertaining some stuff. Even though they like Brandon Ayuk, it's just they've done it with DeForest Buckner, who was more proven than Brandon Ayuk in terms of it's harder to find a defensive tackle, and they traded him. You have to have. It's a shitty part about the NFL, kind of the Jay Monahan ability to I just got to do something I don't want to do.
Well, that's the other one where Jay Monahan's like, hey, I did what I reserve the right to change my mind. Basically, he's like, what I said at the time based on the available information that I had. It's like, yeah. I don't think the only information I don't think any of the information's changed. I think they would have given you $50 billion 2 years ago. I don't know what's changed exactly.
Guy, I clicked on a video. The chick, Trump did a town hall on CNN like a month ago.
Yeah, I've got the head of CNN fired, basically.
The chick who hosted it, I thought he got fired for yelling at people or something.
Well, it was a lot of stuff, but I guess that town hall was the final straw. But Caitlin,
Caitlin had on Bryson.
I saw the interview.
Bryson dropped, and listen, we could argue peppering him over this. It's not. I know he took their money, but he did.
Agreed to the interview. Can you say I'm just a golfer when you agree to the interview? It's coming.
Maybe it's time to forgive. He dropped that. I was like, Bryson, forgive. We're talking about 9/11.
Was he? Do you think he was selling an energy drink? He kept drinking. On the he couldn't go 5 minutes.
Do you think? I mean, fuck yeah, he was.
Okay. All right. Debo's cap number in 2024 is $28 million. His that's his cap number, $28 million. Let's say conservatively, the receiver tag is $20 million. So in theory, you could end up with $50 million on 2 receivers, basically.
You're saying on Ayuk's 5th-year option?
Yeah, well, the 5th-year option is $14 million.
What years? He's on his 4th year.
Yeah. So
he would start. He would have to do a Debo.
He'd want the extension going into the. You're saying you would wipe out the $14 million 5th year? That's what you would do ideally and get him for less.
Yeah, it gets factored in. For a lower cap.
You're right. I was adding up 2 years from now. You're right. Next year at $14 million.
If Brandon Ayuk has a good year, he says absolutely no chance I'm playing for $14 million. Right. What a lot of the guys do. It's time for a contract extension.
And they'd say, fine, we'll extend you, but you're going to make, your cap hit, they would, like Debo last year, whose cap hit was $6 million. That's how it would work.
Well, right? If Debo was A.J. Brown, right, or Devontae, or just whoever at 26, 27 years old, elite player, you would just give him one of those extension things, push the money back, right? Kick the can down the road, fuck with his cap space.
Right.
You would just fudge it all.
And Bosa at the same time.
But it just makes you think, do we want to fudge it all, or can we get a second and a third, and just get rid of his cap space?
Yeah.
We're way ahead of ourselves, but it feels, is it less than a 50-50 shot that they're both on the team next year? Because even if $14 million, even if it's $14 million and $27 million, that's
$42 million.
That cannot happen.
Yeah, 28.5. So almost 29.
That's impossible. Because the $14 million is fully guaranteed. There's no fudging it, right? Even though you would gladly pay him $14 million a year, right?
Yeah, the fudge would be you pay him 25 in cash, but it's 6 on the books. But, is it going to line up when are him and Bosa both going to have a combined cap hit in year 3 of their deals of $60 million, right? Or more?
I think ideally you just have Debo has a good season, Ayuk has a good season, and then you just got options with movement, right? But are you more inclined to move Debo, keep Ayuk because that ages better?
Yeah, I mean that's what I wonder. That's where like watching Ayuk practice today and Debo kind of practice today. I wonder about it. But at the same time, when you say to answer your question, is it lower than 50-50? The other thing that works against Debo is they do have McCaffrey, who does some of the same stuff. Now, having them together is part of like what makes it really crazy and cool, right?
Yeah.
Who has one of those guys, let alone two. I think they'd love to find a way to keep both of them. I don't know how you replace them because you have to go. You still like you have to get another guy. So is Danny Gray stepping up? Okay, that makes it a little easier. Like truly, like is he a top 3 receiver right now? He's not trending that direction.
No, I think essentially what you do is you trade with a team in like the end of the first round, one of the guys,
and try and get another Ayuk.
Jordan Addison, right? Like look at the Vikings. They cut. I'm pretty sure they cut Thielen. What do? They draft Addison. You replace the guy with a cheaper. But there's just a huge unknown. You also, if you're trading Ayuk, which is very, very risky, you're trading him to a team that then obviously gives him a 4-year, whatever, 23 a year, guarantees him $65 million.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Which I think it's pretty clear when you look at the draft and those 3 teams that drafted receiver, that it was on the table because those teams would not have had to extend Ayuk right away. They just could play it out for a year and then extend him next year, maybe, potentially. The Ravens trying to like do right by Lamar. Imagine instead of taking Zay Flowers, they just trade for Brandon Ayuk.
Right. 100%. I'm with you. I mean,
I think that little sweet range, it just all those guys fell. Which I'd say typically, I don't know the receivers beside Marvin Harrison in this class, but usually the top receivers in a draft, I'd say go by the teams, right? And maybe one guy goes in the single digits. That just wasn't the case this year. So the teams that needed receivers just, fuck, I don't need to trade for Brandon Ayuk. I'll just take Zay Flowers.
Right.
Who's I get for the next 4 years before I even think about paying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they all went.
Niners do get their pick back next year for the first time in a long time.
Oh, that'll be a fun change.
I forget.
They can.
You're allowed to draft in the first, 75 picks.
Well, they won't have enough ammo still to get up to get Caleb Williams, but
You think they could do it over? Would they have traded Debo for pick 10 and the essentially I think was Drake Jackson pick 61 and just taking Garrett Wilson?
Wait, trade.
Well, remember last year it was like, do you trade Debo to the Jets for pick 10?
Oh, right.
And then remember part of it was like, well, the Jets also, they wanted your second round pick.
Yeah.
And we thought it was insane, but now looking back, like, what if Garrett Wilson is the next top 6-7 receiver? Aaron Rodgers thinks he's a star. If you could do that over, would you do it? Because I think you would think about it. Still some unknown on Garrett Wilson, a long way to go, but
hard. You didn't know you were going to get McCaffrey at the time.
You did not, and you didn't have him most of the season, right?
And is Garrett Wilson, what Garrett Wilson can do down the field with Aaron Rodgers, you can't assume you would have been able to do with him. But yeah,
I love Debo. I'm a huge Debo guy. I do not, doesn't bother me. These little chubby every once in a while, can relate. Doesn't bother me, doesn't practice hard. And I really appreciate, and every team in the league wants guys like that on game day because that's what the league, literally the whole business is built around, Sundays. And he's a Sunday player. But if you just look at it economically, like if you put on your Roseman Parag hat, you'd go, would I rather have Garrett Wilson on a cheap contract for the next 3 years? Easily extend Ayuk and then worry about him in another couple of years?
Well, yes. I mean, part of this year was like, have you seen Debo Samuel's best?
Garrett Wilson's quarterbacks were a disaster last year, had 83 catches. I mean, I think he's fucking pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're right. The other part, like I just said, is part of it is have we seen Debo Samuel's best, right?
It's a big year for the dude.
It is a big year for him because he can make or break the Niners' approach to Brandon Ayuk. The Brandon Ayuk thing can just take care of itself if Debo, looks like he's trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's tough because you get $28 million coming to him next year. But
Yeah, I think Hargrave, his cap number is going to go up. I think eventually guys figure Ward's on a pretty big contract. He'll be going into year 3 of that contract. Some of this stuff just starts to come to a head, right? I mean, shit, they pushed D Ford's contract down forever. And the other thing is, this is what makes them unique. The only reason their team can be this good is because they don't pay anything to their quarterbacks. Really.
what if they get? What if it happens to be that this is the time they have a quarterback?
Who?
Well, whoever. I don't know. Brock. What if Brock Purdy turns into a franchise quarterback? Great problem to have. You'd prefer to have that problem than be able to afford the most expensive non-quarterback team ever, but you just prefer to have a good quarterback too.
I'd try to get him to play all 4 years on that 7th Mr. Irrelevant contract.
Just supplement it with Adobe Acrobat ads.
Exactly. Give him some you see the Meta's new or not Meta, but Apple has the new their version of Oculus.
Yeah. $3,500.
Is that what it costs?
Yeah.
I saw someone tweeted out just 80% of America's retirement plans depend on this succeeding.
Yeah.
If you tell me that thing eventually you can be courtside in the NBA, you can just be I can follow the PGA Tour right behind the golfer, which obviously feels inevitable. Who knows? Maybe when we're 70, or is it in 5 years? And then do the leagues start charging you?
I think it's closer to 5 years than 70.
They can start taking my money fast. Wait,
right?
You can get a package for $1,000, any NBA on the court. What would that? What would the NBA what would the price point be? Because they wouldn't just give it away for free, right?
They wouldn't, but you can't charge. It's part of sitting courtside is just the being seen. Being in the scene and being. No,
obviously, I'm saying but is it $1,000 for the entire season? You can be courtside any game you want. Yeah. Would you do that if I told you it was actually 99% realistic?
It's hard, right? Because how many games do you watch? I'm just watching this game for 2.5 hours, 82 times. That's what I'm doing.
Me and you might be bad examples, but if NBA fans wouldn't you be all over that?
Yeah, especially, which they'll have is the ability to do it with other people, quote unquote, right? You're sitting with other people. You're talking to those people.
Football wouldn't be as important unless they gave you, you sit there next to Kyle Shanahan.
Yes. Well, part of it, too, I've seen a few images. It's you put the headset on to watch a movie, but the area around the movie, it's now a theater instead of your living room. So you're not, you're changing how you're watching it, but you're also just changing kind of the surroundings. So what if League Pass, instead of being one TV that you change the channels or you get a 4-box on, you put on the headset and you can look at every, you're in a virtual viewing room where you're getting every single game. You can just look, you can swipe, whatever from game to game. It doesn't put you there so much that it just allows you to be in a place where you can move from game to game very easily.
I'll tell you what would be sweet. I'm not a big racing guy, but if you just told me I get the view of
in the car
Verstappen as he's flying around,
with nobody in front of him every time.
What would be the best seat at the house to watch Djokovic play Nadal? Would it be the ref's chair, just sitting there like this?
How about a concert?
Where would you want to be?
On the stage.
Just right next to
or just right on the front of the stage where it looks like you can reach out and touch them, and it's just Swifty, or maybe she's T Swift and you're a Swifty. I don't know how that one works.
Is there a time when no one attends anything anymore? The NFL's already told you,
there's just virtual cameras in seats. Each person has an assigned. Oh, I bought ticket A4. Are you going? No, but that's where they put my camera is an A4.
It'd be harder to get
where you're sitting.
Would it be hard to get the best effort out of the concert?
Yeah, I think it would be.
Comedy'd be impossible.
Unless the comedian's doing it from home too.
True.
The performer's in a virtual stage.
He puts on his headset so he can see everybody.
Yeah, the performer's in a virtual stage. Because I saw there was one of the features was you turn the thing around, it scans your face. And then when you put it on, we each put it on to FaceTime, What you see is like the VR version of me, and my mouth is moving and my eyes are moving and it looks like me talking, right? Not like a cartoon me, like it looks like augmented reality me, because we're both wearing headsets. So how are we going to see each other? Well, I scan my face, and what you see, even though I'm wearing a headset, it looks like me talking. And what I see, even though you're wearing a headset, it's just you talking, and it moves, the lips move, the whole thing moves with the words you're saying. Yeah, and you could be lying in bed, but it's really you're wearing a 3-piece suit.
Tim Cook's on something.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all for us here in the real world today. Anything else to add?
No.
I was going to tell you this one. Did you see the thing about the Madden EA, not Madden, but the college football EA game, where the guy is telling all the athletes, don't sign, don't release your name to the game, because it's like $500 per player. And people were making the point like, well, yeah, there's 133 teams, so you're not getting the same cut that NFL players get. It's not the same level of, it doesn't sell as well as the Madden game does. I don't know why I'm out of focus again. But I guess some people are a little surprised that the players aren't getting that much money off the new EA game, which I don't know why that's surprising to anybody. But
well, the other thing is an equal split. Like Caleb gets the same as the
I think it's an equal split.
Indiana, right?
What they should do is just pay. Yeah, I think it's an equal split.
Who's the leader in the clubhouse that's fucking telling all these guys this? Like,
I don't know. There's some guy who's wants a union, not a player. It's not an active player.
Some lawyer that's trying to screw everyone that just wants to play the game.
Some guy. Everyone's got it. It's always like, I'm here for the kids, for a percentage.
What's so stupid too is like all the guys getting paid. Think how many guys now around the country that matter in the game are all getting compensated. Like Bo Nix, like, I'm not doing this for 500. Well, you're already fucking making $2 million. You won't even notice when the check comes through.
Yeah, I saw a study. The average the average starter for a top half Power 5 team, Power 5. So there's like 62 of those or whatever it is. So say like a top 30 team, the average starter's making $45,000. Which I think is a good number when you think about how many starters there are. There's actually a lot of guys making 250 or 200, 150, whatever.
Hell yeah, the starting guard for Iowa that's never going to play past Iowa. I mean, he's getting $50,000 on top of his. That doesn't count the scholarship, right? Everything's paid for. You're there for free,
right.
So you're just getting $50,000. Some of the SEC schools have everyone on salary, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a good number of schools that promise you, even if it's like $5,000.
Guy, the walk-ons all eat now for free. I don't think walk-ons are now compensated.
Well, I saw somebody did a study today what walk-ons are worth to a school. It's a big number.
Why? Because of the body?
Yeah, just because of the volume of the number of them that they have for practice and, all of that stuff.
Holding the bags.
But the problem is they're replaceable. They're walk-ons for the most part. So it's tough.
They're very replaceable. And if they're not, you put them on scholarship.
Right. Anyway. All right. On that note,
adios.
Thanks for hanging, everybody. Later.